This is Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO and WNYC and WHYY. I'm Nancy Solomon. We are right in the middle of two of the most important dates in the New Jersey political calendar, but very few people actually pay attention to them. We had the primary election for every seat in the state legislature at the beginning of June, and coming up next week, the state budget must be signed, sealed, and delivered, or the government shuts down. We'll talk about these two major events and about the new deal to cut property taxes for seniors in half. And we'll take your calls. Are your property taxes higher than $13,000 a year? Because if so, I want to hear from you. The number to call is 844-745-8255. That's 844-745-TALK. And we'll be also taking your questions via social media using the hashtag AskGovMurphy. And the number again to call is 844-745-TALK. And we're joined now by Governor Phil Murphy. Good evening.
Nancy, good to be with you.
So I went to see your soccer team a couple of weeks ago at Red Bull Stadium for Gay Pride Night.
Yeah.
Biggest crowd they've ever had, it said up on the board.
Correct.
And so it was a lot of fun. And I'm just kind of curious, do you get a chance to go much?
Yeah, I was there. And we're going to go there. There's going to be a send-off game this coming Sunday night for the the World Cup players. So we try to go to as many as possible. We're the longest serving owners in that league. Oh. And it's gone from cold, dark, and lonely to finally now in women's sport more generally. I think, and you and I were talking about WNBA is another good example. But it is finally becoming sort of an it sport. And that means attracting folks to show up and sit in the seats, sponsors, investors, et cetera. It's really exciting. We did it initially because we looked up, we said, the American women are the number one ranked team in the world. And there was a really low level professional league. So we joined the league way back when to get it at world-class level for all the girls out there, including our own daughter, to have, heroes to look up to. It's been a long road, but as we sit here, it feels really good.
So are you telling me you were at the game that I was at that night?
I certainly was.
And you didn't come over and say hello?
Nor did you come over to say hello to me, I might add.
I was scanning the luxury boxes, wondering.
I sit in the crowd, I want you to know.
That's impressive.
But that was an incredible atmosphere.
I mean,
don't you think?
It was fun.
It was like 15 or so thousand people there. It was really, really cool. Tough, tight game, but it was really a special night.
I do have a complaint.
Okay.
Yes.
Just going to segue to property tax? Or
no, the food. Come on. I mean, it was not good.
Yeah, I think we're beholden. We play, as you rightfully pointed out, we play in Red Bull Stadium in Harrison, which is a gem of a stadium.
It was very nice.
It's gorgeous, and it couldn't be better located, and we enjoy a great relationship with the Red Bull management and their organization. I think we're beholden to whatever their model is in terms of food and drinks. So I did not dream the menu up, but please, we'll work on it.
It was a very enjoyable evening. And I was wondering if that roof closes or whether it stays open all the time.
It does not close. It's a classic European soccer stadium style. Basically, many call it the donut. So the seats are covered. Yeah. And the field is open. They have a natural grass field there. It's probably one of the best fields in the country. It's just gorgeous, and they do a great job keeping it up. And of course, you've got the Red Bulls and ourselves are there as well. So,
and we could stay with sports and culture because this is a big moment with your North to Shore. I had to get it right.
Yeah.
So this is a big Jersey festival. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So the backstory is a fairly simple one. And I don't want to get political or cultural, but that's really what this is about. My wife and I woke up about 2 or 3 years ago, and we were listening to a story about South by Southwest, which is a famous festival in America based in Austin, Texas. Austin is a great town. I got nothing against Austin. But we said, wait a minute. If you're in Austin, you're governed by the laws of Texas. So if you're a woman, if you're a person of color, if you're an immigrant, if you care about gun safety, voting rights, you're playing an away game. And so he said, wait a minute. Secondly, not only is New Jersey on the right side of history and all those things, we ooze of talent. So we came up with this idea. It took us a fair amount of time to get it going. Year one, I hope we're able to do this as an annual event, north to shore, Atlantic City for one weekend, Asbury Park last weekend, Newark, the Brick City, beginning tomorrow. And it's everything from Stephen Colbert to 50th anniversary of hip hop with my friends Eric B. and Rakim, to the B-52s, Southside Johnny, and a lot of local acts, which is the cool part. And then there's a technology infusion in this whole thing. So it's a really cool mix. NJPAC, under John Schreiber's leadership, has been the primary driver. Evie Colbert from Montclair Film has also been very important in this. And we're going to live and learn. We'll do a postmortem. And my hope is that this is something that we can keep doing. The folks estimate, I think, and Alex will correct me, 350,000 people will attend at least one of these events. And there's over 200 events across those three cities. So it's really cool, off to a good start. It'll take a while to build the reputation, but I'm confident that we'll do just that.
I looked today to see about tickets to see Stephen Colbert at NJPAC in Newark, and there aren't that many seats left.
No, in fact, there
weren't three together, in fact.
Yeah, I was with him last night, and I had thought even that it was sold out. So I know Southside is sold out. Who's the big comedian who's coming in, Alex? Bill Burr is, I think, sold out. It's popular. This stuff, they're flying off the shelf, as I say.
And is this a money maker or a money spender? And what's the relationship between the festival and the state?
Yeah, so the Economic Development Authority, and thanks to the legislature, appropriated money that we put in to get this thing on its feet. At the end of the day, it will be absolutely a money spinner for the New Jersey economy in those three communities. I'm not sure what the ledger will look like in terms of state government, but it will be a big plus in terms of those three communities. And I'll give you one anecdote. We had friends who wanted to go to Asbury last weekend to see one of the acts. They couldn't get a hotel room. Now that is in the warm weather. Asbury's a pretty hot town and with supply demand imbalance. But they've been doing this for a long time. They're both Jersey folks. They live out of state. They said that has not happened to them ever, that they couldn't actually get a room. So that's the other piece of this. You want to not just have a lot of Jersey folks enjoying themselves, but other folks coming in from outside of Jersey enjoying it.
Right. What is it? $35 billion a year the Jersey Shore brings in?
Yeah, 35 to 40. And the past few have been records based on the anecdotal evidence early on. This is going to be another record year. We need better weather. Can you help me work on that? I looked at the forecast for the next 10 days. It's not pretty.
It's been great, though.
Yeah.
We've had a really beautiful spring.
We fell off the table, unfortunately, I think, for a week or so. But I'm very excited about the summer on the shore.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was planning on talking about the property tax cut in a little bit in a few minutes, but we do have a caller who wants to talk about it. So let's go to Eugenia. You're on the line with the governor.
Hey, Eugenia.
Hello, Governor Murphy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, sir. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the very end of the state in Belvedere, right by the Delaware River, sir.
God bless you. All righty. What do you got?
Yes. Anyway. All right. So about the senior tax cut. I understand about the tax cut. My dad is a working senior, and he would benefit from it. But at the same time, the limit of $500,000 means that some of the very richest residents of our state would get it. If it was scaled to say 100,000 or even 125,000, it would still cover the vast majority of working taxpayers. Mm-hmm. And we could use that money for things like transit out east, or infrastructure, because as we've seen in our people right across the river in Pennsylvania, infrastructure is a concern these days. Anyway, thank you.
I'll say. Yeah. Thanks for listen, all good points. A couple of things. We're not quite there yet. We're still crossing T's and dotting I's. So, Nancy, you'll forgive me for the fact that we're not going full bore on where this landed. But it landed, in my opinion, in a very, very good place. We care deeply, to your very good question, sir, about means testing. And if folks don't know what the words means testing means, it's very simply the big benefits of whatever the program you're talking about go to people who earn under a certain amount of income. The anchor property tax program, for instance, which covers, by the way, middle class and seniors, if you make up to $150,000 and you own a home, you got a $1,500 check. If you rent and you make that amount of money, you got a $450 check. And then if you even make up to $250,000 in that program, you got $1,000 if you own your home. So means testing, without getting into the details of where we end up, is hugely important to us. Secondly, driving affordability to all members of society, all sort of strata, the littlest up to the seniors, is a big impetus of ours. And so we care deeply about making the state as affordable as possible. But thirdly, we have to do whatever we do in a manner that retains the momentum that we've had over the past now 6 years in reclaiming our fiscal responsibility. Folks, it may not remember this. It's ancient, feels like ancient news at one level. But when we got here, the state had really for 30 plus years, both sides of the aisle, by the way, guilty as charged, went from a state that was AAA bond rated to really weak ratings. The last administration, 11 straight downgrades. We must not, particularly with revenues softening and a concern about what's around the corner in the economy, we must not give up that momentum, and we won't. And I think we're going to, again, I'm not making news because we're not quite there yet. I think on all of what I just said, we're going to land in a really good place.
Tell me a little more about the decision. So the Assembly, the Speaker of the Assembly, Craig Coughlin, had proposed, or, he's got a bill that would have given tax breaks up to, the max was $10,000. So half for anyone 65 and older, half of your tax bill off, up to $10,000. It sounds like in the compromise that you struck over the weekend, now it'll be $6,500 will be the max. Why $6,500 and not $10,000? I mean, for people who are paying $20,000, $25,000 a year, who are not wealthy, they're maybe professionals and make a decent living, but they're not wealthy. That's still, I mean, it's a good tax cut, $6,500, but 10 would have been better.
Yeah.
Speaking as someone with very high property taxes in Essex County.
Yeah, and yours truly in Monmouth County. I think the answer, Nancy, again, I don't want to get into the details because we're not quite there yet. The news is a little out ahead of exactly where we are. And I give the Speaker an enormous amount of credit, and the Senate President, because we work really well together, and we are all committed to affordability. By the way, this is on top of what will be 18 tax cuts that we've delivered in our time in office to middle-class families and seniors. So this is not a one-trick pony. I think the answer is you try to balance everything I just said a minute ago. You want to deliver as much affordability as possible to as many strata of your residents, but at the same token, I don't want to give up the enormous progress, hard-fought progress we've made to get our credit ratings back into shape, where the rating agencies are now taking us up and when they used to take us down before we got here. So it's balancing a bunch of plates in the air, and that's sort of the context.
Yeah. I mean, I did a story about this last week, and I interviewed a bunch of people who are 65 or older and have high property taxes. And one of the things that was said to me was that, it used to be that folks, paid off their mortgage and stayed in their home well past their retirement. And people can't do that anymore with the property taxes so high, especially in some parts of the state. And that what that meant is that older people in the community who don't have kids in the school were kind of a good deal for towns, because you paid your taxes, but you don't send kids to the schools. So it just seems like things have kind of spiraled out of control, where you have, everybody I know, once their kids are out of the school system, most people leave, and they're not leaving New Jersey necessarily, but they're leaving their house and their town, and they're downsizing and going to a cheaper place. So, and that doesn't seem to be a good mix for the town and the town's tax base and the town's ability to keep funding the school system. Yeah. So it's sort of and so then the taxes go up more because they have more people moving in with more kids and higher enrollment, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean, you say things are spiraling out of control. With all due respect, they were out of control when we got here.
Yes,
and we have put an enormous amount of money to work to relieve this, between Anchor, Senior Freeze. We haven't talked about prescription drugs, but making those a lot more accessible. But I also think there's a natural, so we're committed. Let me just say this in big, bold letters. We are committed to affordability for everybody, including and maybe even especially for our seniors, period. And where we land, I think we're going to land in a really good place on this. We'll only add to that. But a lot of what you're describing, I also would say to you, is a natural reality. We've got 4 kids that are growing up. We have a house that we got to accommodate a large family with a bunch of dogs and whatnot. And the regular cycle is going to be that Tammy and I have talked about. We at some point are going to want to be in a place that's more right-sized to what our life looks like. And I don't think we're an exception. We live on a dead-end street. There are about 15 houses, and over the past 3 to 5 years, a third of those houses have turned over, in almost all of them to families with younger kids. That's just that's the circle of life. I mean, the older folks who sold those homes had come there as young couples with young kids. And I think you just see a lot of that. By the way, one last observation on this. We continue to have an enormous supply-demand imbalance between folks who want to live in New Jersey and in particular buy a single-family home and the amount of homes that are for sale. That is notwithstanding inflation, the Fed raising interest rates, the longevity of the recovery from COVID, whatever you might look to as a benchmark, we still have, and this is the most recent data, we still have, on average, single-family homes selling for above the asking price in the state, which is, and the median price of a home that got sold in May of 23, which is the last month I've got data for, was higher than the median price in May of 22, which I would not have predicted, given interest rates. But that's a fact, and that's another factor I think that plays in here, not just with seniors, but with seniors as well.
All right, let's take another call because I think we have more on property taxes. Dave in Ocean Township, you're on the line with the governor. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Hello, guys. I've lived in Ocean Township, the one in Monmouth County, not Ocean County, for the last 8 years. My property taxes have doubled in that amount of time, having gone up 51% just this past year. I'm 60 years old, was born and raised in New Jersey, would love to be able to retire here. But if my taxes double again in 8 years, that's not going to be possible. And wondering what future plans, after you, Governor Murphy, what can be done to curb this or reel it in?
Yeah, your experience, Dave. I want to ask Alex to get Dennis Sebeloff from our team to call Dave within the next 24 hours. That experience is not a typical one. As I mentioned, we've delivered, when this budget is signed, God willing, we'll have delivered 18, now 19 separate meaningful affordability relief on taxes. So up 51% is a big jump. So Dave, I'd love to know a little bit more about your specifics. By the way, I'm in Monmouth County. I'm not too far from you right now. But I'd like to know more about that because that's not the typical experience. Our numbers are, we had in our first 5 years, and I can't say yet, obviously it's too early to tell this year, we had the best period of that length in the modern history of the state in terms of property tax reality. And again, Dave, it'll depend also on increasingly on what your income is as you creep up closer to retirement. How much you make will be a meaningful, it is already, but as you retire, most seniors are under these limits that we're talking about. 90+% are under the 250,000 cap in most every county in the state. The property tax relief will be even more significant. So again, Dave, we're going to follow up with you. I promise you this is something that we're obsessed with. And by the way, these are laws. So Anchor's a law. God willing, Stay NJ is going to be a law. The other things that I've referenced on affordability are laws, and laws are hard to undo. So it's not just an executive order. You asked what happens after we're here. These are permanent programs.
Okay, well, we are going to take a break, and then we will be taking more of your calls at 844-745-8255. That's 844-745-TALK. or you can use social media to get a hold of us at AskGovMurphy. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WNYC, and WHYY. Got a question for New Jersey's governor? Call us now at 844-745-8255. That's 844-745-TALK. Pose your question on Twitter or Facebook with the hashtag AskGovMurphy.
I'm Nancy Solomon, and we're live with Governor Phil Murphy. And we have Tennyson Donier from WHYY and WBGO here with us, monitoring social media. Tennyson, what do you have for us?
So I have a question from Allegra in West Orange, who wants to know if there's any movement on the proposed movie studio in West Orange. I listened to the township meeting last month, and council members said there was a holdup from the governor's office. If there is a legislative issue that goes beyond the township, can you please elaborate on it and what's being done to resolve this?
Yeah, Allegra, it's a very good question, and I'm going to ask maybe Alex to get Eric Brophy to give her a call tomorrow. There is the big picture. We've gone from nowhere to being one of the hottest places, not just in America, but in the world, to make film and television. And we have, so that's all really good news. We have, secondly, tweaked our programs that make the financial math work for the studios and the producers many times over the past, now this is our 6th year. We're in the process of working. I give the legislature a huge shout out in that respect, because that we have to do, as we do almost all of this stuff, with them, and they've been great. We're in the process of doing that, just that right now, tweaking yet again our incentive programs. And so I'd ask Allegra, again, we'll have Eric and our team follow up, but I'd ask Allegra to bear with us. I'm hoping that we can bring all of what I just said to a head alongside the budget process, which Nancy said up front. The clock is ticking. It needs to be solved by a week from Friday. So hopefully Allegra will get into a place that we can come back to you and say, we did what we needed to do at the state level. So please bear with us.
Okay, well, we're going to stay with the senior tax cut for just a little bit longer. And let me just
another hour or two.
Let me just recap for folks. We're talking about a new proposal that Governor Murphy has come to an agreement with the state legislature over. It would cut property taxes for anyone 65 years and older by half, up to $6,500. So if your property taxes are $10,000, you would only pay $5,000. If your property taxes are $20,000, you would get $6,500 off of that, not the full half. And it's going to be means tested, which means that you have to earn, I believe it's $500,000 per household, less than that to qualify. So with having said that, because I just wanted to kind of recap where we're at, we've been talking about it. We're going to go to another call. We have Jeffrey in Maplewood.
Maplewood?
I didn't set that up.
Come on.
Jeffrey, are you there?
I certainly am. Nancy, hi, Governor. You're a neighbor of ours. You live around the corner from us.
Cool.
I love that. Jeffrey, any good Nancy stories now that I've got you? Or?
Oh, boy. You see me walking my very large dog?
I was going to say, I got to look forward to walking our dog. Governor, my question is that we have been Maplewood residents for 33 years. We're paying $20,000 a year in property taxes. We get no tax break for any Social Security payments to us. And my question is, my wife is only 63. I'm 72 and a half. Would we still qualify for the tax break?
Jeffrey, I'm going to have Dennis or someone on his team call you tomorrow. I believe the answer is yes, but I don't want to trip myself up on that. Remember now, it's means tested, as Nancy said. So depending on what your income is,
we don't come anywhere near the $500,000 mark.
Yeah,
I wish we did.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But I don't want to. Again, I'm a little sensitive to the fact that we're still crossing T's and dotting I's. So I don't want to. You'll hear Nancy talking about the specifics, but I'm not doing that tonight. But I'll have Dennis follow up with you. May I also say something, Nance, that's somewhat related to Jeffrey's very good question? And Maplewood, all kidding aside, is, people all over the country know of South Orange Maplewood because of the school district, the transit connectivity. It's just a really special community, and you live there and you know it better than I. I should say this. This is not a program that we're going to be able to flip a light switch and begin on July 1st. I also want folks to accept the fact that we need a period of time to leg into this and to leg into it with that fiscal responsibility that I mentioned earlier. But I do think we're going to be able to, hit interim benchmarks that will deliver even more affordability sooner than the ultimate full rollout of the program. So again, stay tuned on that as well. And Jeffrey will get Dennis or somebody on his team to follow up with you.
What would that look like? I don't quite.
My
know
guess
what you
is, my guess is that again, I don't want to get into the details as we're still in the final stages of baking this, but what the program ultimately looks like, you pick X years down the road, we're going to probably leg into that by taking steps between now and then, even as we're transitioning into that we'll be able to give folks some more relief, even more relief than they had under Anchor last year, and especially clearly in this case for seniors.
Okay, let's keep rolling with the calls. We have Brendan in Marlboro on the line. Hi,
Hey.
Brendan.
Hey, Brennan.
Hi, good evening, Governor Murphy.
Good evening.
So I'm calling you from Marlboro, New Jersey, and outside of the lobby of the Board of Ed meeting tonight. There are also Board of Ed meetings happening in the neighboring towns of Manalapan and your hometown of Middletown. And next week on the 28th, there will be a meeting in Colts Neck where there is anti-trans legislation that will be harshly impacting our youth. Policies that would include forced outing and override of preferred pronouns and names. And according to the Trevor Project, 2/3 of trans youth do not find themselves in safe homes. So I'm curious what your office and what the Office of the Attorney General intend on doing to protect our trans youth as more and more of these policies get passed.
Yeah, I'm aware of everything you said, including my own town of Middletown, which is having a meeting. I wasn't sure that it was tonight, but I accept your word on that. First of all, I'm not happy. This is not who we are as a state. I frankly don't think this is who we are as a country, and I'm offended by it. Now, I can't say a whole lot more because the Attorney General has taken action. As folks probably know, several weeks before Marlboro, Colts Neck, Middletown, Manalapan, Hanover Township Board of Ed took steps that were along the lines of what Brendan has outlined that these communities are considering. And the Attorney General took action immediately. And that has been back and forth. And unfortunately, because there's legal action on behalf of our administration, I really can't get into it. But just know, Brendan, that I don't like it. I think it's not who we are as a state or a country. We're living in this us versus them moment. I wish there were a moment, era in our country. And invariably, communities like the trans community are the big losers. They're the ones that get singled out. They're the ones that get behind the 8 ball. And it just offends me at the core. So the weapons that we'll use, other than my bully pulpit, will overwhelmingly, I would think, be legal, which means there's not a whole lot more I can say, but know that I'm sure I can say on behalf of the Attorney General that we will be vigilant, as we are in everything, in this case, no exception, vigilant to the max in fighting back.
Thanks for your call, Brendan. Governor, you signed an executive order in April that protects transgendered people who seek medical care. The order protects both patients and healthcare providers from punishment for seeking, receiving, providing gender-affirming healthcare. Because it's an executive order, that means it could be overturned by the next governor. Yeah. And Republican candidate Jack Ciattarelli has spoken out against various changes that we've seen, positive changes for transgendered rights. Do you have any plans to propose actual legislation that would make that gender-affirming care law into actual law?
Yeah. So everything you said is exactly right. And the reason why we went the executive order route is we could do that literally. Not literally overnight, but almost literally overnight. And I'm proud to have signed that with members of the trans community and activists in my office, actually in that case in the Newark office. In a perfect world, I'd like this to be law. I can't speak for the legislature. Obviously, these 10 days are a little challenging to get the budget and stuff alongside the budget done. But that is something, for one guy's opinion, I'd like to see that put into a place where the next governor or some governor 20 or 30 years from now couldn't overturn it. And so that would be my personal aspiration. Again, I can't speak for the legislature.
What is your sense, though, about the legislature? Because I can't think of a single legislator that I could imagine like taking up the mantle on this. Like they just, the New Jersey state legislature seems to be a bit more conservative than, say, your average Democrat in New Jersey. And I'm wondering, like, do you see somebody
more conservative than say you, the governor, right?
Well, that too. Right. But do you see somebody who would take this up and convince people to support transgender rights?
I don't want to. First of all, I sure as heck hope so. So I'm an optimist, and it's the right thing to do. Forget the politics here. I think there will be, but I think it's a moment, a time, and a place. And I can't speak for the legislature, but I think at the end of the day, there's a real shot of that, and I'm hoping that that's the case, and I'm going to do what I can to see that become a reality. In the meantime, the good news is I'm here for I'm not making news overturning the Constitution. I'm here for a little over 2.5 years, and I guarantee under my watch we're going to protect at every turn the trans community, whether that's executive order, Attorney General action, or striving toward other steps we can take.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have more calls waiting to talk to you. We have Maureen in Roosevelt. I love the town of Roosevelt. Has a question for you. Hi, Maureen.
Hi, Maureen.
Hi, Governor. I have a lot of grave concerns about what's going on at the New Jersey Veterans, in particular Menlo Park. I'm power of attorney for someone who's applied, and when now the admissions have been reopened, and they were closed by the federal government for months, as you know, because of health and safety violations. And now this person was denied, and he's being denied allegedly for refusing to take medication, which there's a federal right to do. So my question is, what kind of oversight is your administration doing over the admissions process and the health and safety at the veterans homes?
Maureen, thank you. And most importantly, God bless our vets. And we know they paid, not only did they pay in some cases with their lives, an enormous price in their service, but when they became veterans, particularly we saw in the pandemic, they were crushed. And the Department of Health no longer, this has now been the case for several months, no longer puts out the daily, you probably saw this, they don't put the daily data out anymore. But the one thing I do still get every day is the status of each of our veterans homes. And the one number I look at before I look at any other number is the amount of fatalities cumulatively, and these are verified fatalities, and they're in the respective Menlo, Paramus, and Vineland 79, 92, 23. So this is the one thing I continue to be obsessed with. I can't, Maureen, I think I'm going to ask Lisa, Adjutant General Lisa Howe, who oversees ultimately the veterans' homes, will put an enormous amount to work there. Laws I've signed, executive actions, teams that we've put in there. And I don't want to prejudge what the answer might be with the person who you've got the power of attorney for. So if you can bear with us, I will ask the general to give you a call and go over the specific situation. I think you said it was in Menlo. And I promise you she'll get to you.
Menlo Park.
We'll get to you within the next 24 hours, either she or a senior member in her team.
Listeners, we're taking your calls at 844-745-TALK, and we're also taking your questions via social media, and Tennyson Danye is here to keep alert to them. What are you seeing out there, Tennyson?
This question is from Christopher in Marlton, who has a question about Twitter, asking, with Twitter's turn to what Christopher is calling authoritarianism under Elon Musk, would you consider mandating that state entities must also post to alternatives such as Mastodon?
You know, it's a good question, Christopher. We've done that with TikTok. The issue with TikTok is really twofold. Number one, data privacy and concerns around that, which is why we took the step to sort of get them off of state phones. And the other is blatant, in my humble opinion, disregard for age-appropriate content. So they'll say something is appropriate for a 12-year-old, where you and I, Tennyson, would look at and say, there's no way that's appropriate for a 12-year-old. So we took that step with TikTok. We still communicate via TikTok because, and I know people say, well, you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. I actually think that those are compatible because we do want to get to the audience. And that's why we have stayed with Twitter. And I would say to Christopher, you never say never, but perhaps let's see where this evolves. So we monitor Twitter very, very closely, but we are doing just as, did he say Mastodon? Was that the example?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of, Alex Altman is at the end of the table here taking notes. I don't know how many different platforms we are either literally on or considering going on that allows us to amplify our message in a way that we think is responsible, fair-minded, even-handed, whatever the words you want to use. But we're staying on Twitter for now, but you know, we monitor that literally every single day, not just what Elon does, but just sort of the way that platform is evolving.
So we've been talking a little bit about the state budget. We've mentioned, I'm
You're
switching
going back
gears
to the
here.
senior property tax relief?
I'm going back to the state budget.
Okay.
So, you know, the senior tax bill was one of the things that was holding up negotiations. Any other sticking points that we're going to hear about in the next 10 days before you get there?
I mean, I think, again, we enjoy such a good relationship with the leadership in both chambers. Even if there are sticking points, we've been able to work our way through them. And by the way, even before Nick became Senate President, the last several years with Steve Sweeney as Senate President, I would have said the exact same thing. And Craig Coughlin's been the consistent player in the Assembly. So there still are going to be tough decisions to make. I mean, I think we all are. I'll speak for myself, but, you know, we don't want to backslide on the fiscal responsibility. We just can't allow ourselves to do that. And historically, as a state, when people see a big pile of money, like a one-off settlement or a big surplus, whatever it might be, we've found a way to spend that money. And then it starts to rain and you say, okay, let's go back and we need that money. And oops, it's gone. We can never go back to those days. And that's not me preaching. That I think we all three of us and our teams believe passionately that you can, but you got to be careful and balance it, grow the economy, fight inequities, deliver affordability, and be fiscally responsible. That's the sort of quartet of objectives that I think you can achieve. God willing, we will. Maybe not each to the extent any of us would want if it were the only objective, but I think we can land in a good place, and that'll be a big part of the next 10 days.
Okay, we'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break. Callers, 844-745-TALK is the number to call. This is Ask Governor Murphy.
You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WNYC, and WHYY. Got a question for New Jersey's governor? Call us now at 844-745-8255. That's 844-745-TALK. Or pose your question on Twitter or Facebook with the hashtag AskGovMurphy.
I'm Nancy Solomon, and we're live with Governor Phil Murphy, and we're going to go right back to the phones. We have Peggy in Lawrenceville, and I believe, Peggy, you're going to represent 3 callers who all had very similar questions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, Peggy.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking my call. I really appreciate it. And I know Governor Murphy's been really busy on tax and everything. But my question is about the roads in New Jersey. I live in Lawrenceville, and there's in Trenton, like Mulberry Street, Spruce Street, and New York Avenue. Quite a bit of streets in Mercer is kind of bad. And I just wonder, you think they're going to get fixed anytime soon?
Yeah, Peggy, the answer is, I got to say, I hope so. Yes. I will ask maybe Diane Scacchetti, our great commissioner of the Department of Transportation, to give Peggy a call. So it depends on what the road is, Peggy, and I know you know this. So is it a state road? Is it a federal part of the federal highway system? Is it a county? Is it a local community road? So it does depend. Mercer County is extremely, right? So Mercer County is extremely well run, and it has been by my good friend Brian Hughes for many years. So, but it will depend on the road. But Diane, our commissioner of transportation, can walk through that with you, and just to figure out maybe we're missing something. We do have at the state level for several years in a row now record investment in infrastructure, and a huge chunk of that is roads. But again, we're not perfect by a long shot, and maybe a road that is our jurisdiction that we're missing, or maybe we can give a heads up to the mayor or the county executive and somehow find a way to help you out there. But Diane or somebody senior in her team will follow up with you, Peggy, within the next 24 hours.
Thanks for your call, Peggy. So we haven't yet had a chance to talk about the primary, which was just a couple of weeks ago. The entire state legislature is on the ballot.
Yeah.
So now we go to the general in November. 8.4% of registered voters in New Jersey voted in this election in the primary.
Awful. Shocking. Actually, not shocking, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this. This is not the first time we've had this meager result.
It's understandable in the sense of, historically, we know that when there's not a big race at the top of the ticket, president, governor, Senate, that we get these kinds of turnout, although I think this is especially low. So what does that say to you about what's coming in the general? I know that you have spoken publicly about some of your concerns that Democrats might take this for granted and not go out and campaign.
So a couple of things, if I may. First of all, the election went smoothly. It was literally virtually a flawless election. I want to give our Secretary of State, Tahisha Way, and her team a huge shout out. She and I are constantly, during the early vote period, election day, She does a great job, as does her team. So you have vote by mail, early in person, and then same day, game day, as I call it. So the good news is there's no who stole the election. There's no I lost the votes or none of that. Secondly, we have opened up democracy in our time here. Early in person's the big one, but you get online registration. I hope we get one of these days the bill when you're 17 at the primary, but you're 18 by the general, you can vote in the primary. We've opened up voting for ex-felons, folks on parole or who have been pardoned. So that's all good. But you get the result that you get 8 point something percent. I love the Australians have something called mandatory voting. You have to vote. I'm not sure I'm not necessarily making news tonight, but I tell you, I would be very open to a system where you had to get folks to actually, it was their responsibility, their requirement to actually vote. I'll put a partisan hat on now, and this is the point you were making at the end of your good comments. If you're a Democrat right now, you can't take anything for granted. You know, people, I've said this recently, there's a whiff of 2016 out there. People are mad. You remember the movie Network? I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore.
Right.
They're not sure who they're mad at necessarily or why they're mad at. But whether it's the pandemic, my kids' remote learning that sucked, no friends, property taxes, which I hope is not at the top of that. Inflation, seriously, supply chain. Maybe a recession looming, one thing, a political us versus them, vitriol. You look at some of the stuff that has been said. I watched something President Trump said last night about, I don't know what it is, but I do know this. Democrats control both chambers. We have more incumbents than the other guys do. And I think when you're in that mindset and you're not sure why necessarily or against whom, I do think on the margin, you run the risk that folks are going to take it out on the majority. And that is a message I want to make sure I've made and I'll continue to make to my party. Don't sit on your laurels. Don't assume just because we've got majorities now. Scrap. And particularly, as you rightfully point out, especially in low turnout elections.
I mean, at this point, famously, I think I could say in 2021, the Senate President Steve Sweeney lost his seat, kind of looking past it and not campaigning door to door.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know necessarily he didn't do that, but the fact of the matter is that guy came out of nowhere and he spent less than $200. And Steve is a name brand and spent a meaningful amount of money, and he had earned that seat. And which is a shocking result, but that's a great example of it. And that was when you had a governor on the ballot.
Right.
This time you've got no president, no governor, no senator, no members of the House of Representatives. Yeah. I hope it's a higher turnout election than I fear, but my guess is it may not. And we as a party have got to really work hard on this one.
Well, I think people could be forgiven for not voting. As passionate as I am about voting, there weren't a lot of choices on the ballot. I mean, there will be more choices in the general than there were in the primary, but there were a lot of uncontested races. And there were a lot of races where there were no signs out. There was no literature. Yeah. There was no one coming to your door. I mean, so I think to your point, the folks who are running really need to get out there and pull out the vote.
Yeah. I'll give you an exception by the way, we saw the same thing here in Monmouth. And by the way, we voted early with our son, Sam. It's the easiest in person. It's the easiest process. It is shockingly easy. I just want to scream that out to folks. And it's really good because what if the day of election, there's a tornado, God forbid, or there's a I-95 collapses or the trains for Amtrak gums us up or whatever. So when you have multiple days to choose from, it's just common sense. But here was an exception. And when you have local active, so in Edison, control of council and town committee was at stake. Mm-hmm. So there was an enormous battle going on in Edison. And guess what? The turnout in Edison was meaningfully higher because people are out there. Sam Joshi is a great mayor. I was with him in column B. I was campaigning myself there. I was doing robocalls. Sam did a great job. The Middlesex County Democrats were great, but there was real
Yeah.
The real competition, and that's the exception. And we just need more. We need more of those active races.
Okay, well, we have a caller about the election. Don't shoot the messenger, because
Yeah.
I think this looks to be about ballot redesign, an issue I am a little bit passionate about. We have Mary in Weehawken on the line. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hi. Hello, both of you. Thanks for taking my call. Just super quick, I just want to amplify what was said before about, I'm a senior making $25,000 a year. I kind of feel resentful about being in the same boat with others who are making $500,000. It's not exactly a level playing field. But I would like to hear you weigh in, Governor, on the importance of the redesign of the New Jersey ballot. It is New Jersey's unique brand of voter suppression. And Nancy Solomon, yes, has been doing excellent reporting on the need for better ballots, so she can lead the questions. Yes, I've been really following. And I'm very surprised to hear you say, Governor, that it's a mystery why, people are running unopposed. You can't win. I ran for a Democratic committee. I wasn't even going to talk about this, but if you're starting with a 40% disadvantage, if the incumbent has a 40% advantage over you at the starting point, it's just not a level playing field. And Nancy can go into the nitty gritty and get the right answers from you.
Believe
so that
me,
we
she has.
understand where your stance on it. Yes, I know, but it's not a mystery. I mean, I ran in my tiny district, and 5 times the number of people came out to vote than the previous election for 2 reasons. One, because there was somebody else on the ballot, there was somebody else to vote for, but also because the powers that be were not going to lose to me. They're not giving up their power, and I knew I would lose before I started, but I felt it was very, very important to run in my neighborhood where I've lived for 43 years. So it's not a mystery why people don't run. Nobody bothered to vote because it doesn't matter. It doesn't count. Nancy has explained that over and over.
Yes, she has, including to me on a number of occasions. So let me just give the health warning, as they say on the side of the pack of cigarettes. We're in some amount of litigation over the so-called line, so there's only so much I can say on this, and I know that may disappoint you, and I apologize for that, but that's a fact. But I'll tell you, I mentioned a few of the steps we've taken a few minutes ago. We've opened up democracy meaningfully compared to where we were 5.5 years ago when we got here. Are there other ways to open it up? Am I open-minded to that? Absolutely. I'll tell you, in my primary, I had the line in one county where the line I was broken. I think it was Salem County.
They don't have the county endorsement process in Salem, one of 2 counties.
I thought I had the line there.
Thanks.
I mean, you might have had the line, but the line doesn't come like it's not done with all the other party, with all the other officials.
I'm sorry I raised this, Nancy. Now that I've engaged you in this, but Mary, seriously,
I'm not.
I'm open-minded without question. It's not just open-minded. We've taken action. We've taken a lot of steps. And I'm not sure I agree with you that it was related to low turnout. I'm not sure. I want to think about that. I think the general is going to be is a better litmus test for that.
But the general will have more contested races. The primary had so few contested races. There were even seats that were open with no incumbent running that were uncontested.
Yeah. So I had in our district we had the Democrats only had a partial ticket up.
So I think the point Mary's making is that you can't sever the idea of uncontested races and lack of turnout from this idea that, good candidates are turned away because they know, if they're smart and they understand New Jersey politics, they know that without the endorsement of the party and without the line, they're going to lose. So why invest the time and the money? And that's how we end up with 8% voting.
Yeah, I'm not going to get too deep into the line process. I just came, actually, I just want to say this. I just came from the Middlesex County Democratic Organization's reorg. This place was packed.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you there were 500 to 800 people in this ballroom, and they're there of their own free will. right?
Yeah. Oh, no.
So
I mean,
there-
there are a lot of people who want to be involved. I guess I would ask how many of those 500 to 800 people are involved in the endorsement process. In some county Democratic organizations, it is Democratic,
yeah.
but in many of them, it's made by the party boss.
But this was to vote for the chair, and it was a competitive race. So it's, in
Mhm.
fact, they're voting as we speak right now. So again, I'm not suggesting perfection. Again, I can't get into the specifics on the line question, but I think we've proven that we're not just open-minded to opening up democracy, but we've taken a fair number of steps that prove that. And am I willing to take more? The answer is absolutely open-minded to anything that we can do to open things up.
Okay. We
Thank
can
you,
leave
Mary.
it there. Thanks for your call, Mary. Everybody go vote in November. And Tennyson, what else are you seeing on social? You got any questions for us?
I do. I have a question from Lacey from Hapatcong, which I hope I didn't butcher too much. Yep. I looked up the pronunciation before.
I love that.
So Lacey says, I'm a military spouse and I've applied for teacher licensure in several states over the past decade. I found my experience with the New Jersey process to be incredibly inefficient, leading to unnecessary delays in my application. According to one NJ Ed Cert portal customer service representative I spoke to, there are about tens of thousands of pending applications in the system at this time. In light of the teacher shortages New Jersey is facing, which is your administration and or the task force on public school staff shortages doing to address these inefficiencies and significant delays in receiving licensure in New Jersey?
Okay. I know the clock is not our friend here, but I just got to say Hopatcong is a beautiful community. I go to Lake Hopatcong once a summer and sit with 4 or 5 of the mayors up there, just hear what's on their mind. We talk about the shore a lot, as we should, but boy, we have incredible lakes, and Hopatcong is sitting on one of them. Lacey, that's unacceptable. It's the quick answer. Alex, I don't know who the right person is, probably Dennis or somebody on his team. We've taken this teacher shortage task force commission that we helped establish very seriously. We've already proposed pieces in our budget. I had thought that we had taken action already about on military licenses, spouses licenses related to military moves, because when I go down to the joint base, which I'm going to do, I think next week, for an annual visit, that's usually at the top of their list in terms of concerns. And I saw this when I was in the State Department. The spouse or the partner, it's hard, and licensure within all 50 states is a bone in a lot of spousal and partner throats. So I thought we had taken steps, but Lacey, I promise you, we'll get somebody. And Alex, make sure whoever the teammate is who does this, that they come back to you and me with where that came out. And I'll take any suggestions she's got.
Okay, we only have a minute left, but I know you want this question. You're hosting the National Governors Association in Atlantic City in July, and I hear you're going to unveil your youth mental health playbook. So tell us about that.
Yeah, we are. You did tee me up on this one. Thank you. July 12 to 14, National Governors Association, of which I've been honored to serve as chair this past year. I will hand the chairmanship at that meeting over to Utah Governor Republican Spencer Cox. And as you rightfully said, we will deliver two playbooks, one on strengthening youth mental health, and my wife will on infant and maternity health. Incredibly proud of the work we've done, bipartisan work that we've done over the past year. Great to be with you, Nance.
I'm sorry that we have to leave it there. Many thanks to social media reporter Tennyson Donier, producers Joseph Capriglione, engineers Wayne Schulmeister, George Wellington, and Jason Isaac, and help from Stephen Smith, Louis Hockman, and Luke Green. Thanks for listening. I'm Nancy Solomon.